I was just about to slide the ring onto Sophia's finger at our engagement party when her childhood friend, Ethan, stepped between us, holding out a piece of paper. "Liam," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity, "if you want to marry Sophia, you sign this first. The terms are simple. No pressuring Sophia about kids for at least 3 years. And if any negative rumors about her pop up, you take the fall. Publicly." I stared at the ridiculous relationship contract, not taking it. Instead, I looked straight at Sophia. "Is this what you want too?" Sophia's eyes darted away, refusing to meet mine. "Well, it wasn't my idea, but Ethan has a point. I'm just not ready for kids right now." The way she defended him, the way she sided with him, I had to laugh. It was a cold, bitter sound. So it was true. She was actually planning to have a baby with Ethan first, to grant his dying father's last wish. Being a simp gets you nowhere. Screw this. I might as well go back and accept my family's arranged marriage. After all, a woman like that doesn't deserve to be the mother of the Carter heir. "Liam, are you going to sign it or not?" Ethan pressed, his voice sharp with impatience. "If you don't, this engagement is off. You can't just treat our Sophia like some baby factory." Ethan shoved me, his face a mask of self-righteous anger. He was acting like he was her damn father. Anyone watching would think he was her dad, protecting his precious little girl. I snatched the papers and threw them right back in his face. "Who the hell do you think you are?" I said, my voice ice. "Stay out of my business with Sophia, especially what happens in our bedroom." Ignoring Ethan's furious glare, I turned to Sophia. "Sophia, this is about us. Tell me what you want. I'll listen to you." Sophia looked torn, her eyes flickering between me and Ethan. Finally, she mumbled, "Liam, I do think we should wait a few years. I'm just not ready." Her words hit me like a physical blow, a sharp, tearing pain that spread through my chest. 6 years. I'd given her 6 years of my life. I'm 28, and she wants me to wait even longer. The conversation I'd overheard last night replayed in my head. Ethan's voice, pleading. "Sophia, my dad, he has terminal cancer. His last wish is to see his grandchild. What am I supposed to do? You're the only woman I've ever loved. How can I give him a grandchild? Sophia, please have my baby, just to fulfill my dad's wish. I'll do anything for you after. I'll never marry anyone else. I'll just be there for you, no strings attached." Sophia had hesitated. "But Ethan, I'm getting engaged to Liam tomorrow. We've already picked a wedding date. What about him?" Ethan had jumped up, grabbing her in a hug. "It's fine, Sophia. I'll make him sign an agreement tomorrow. If he refuses, you just call off the engagement. Liam is obsessed with you. He's waited 6 years. He's not going to walk away now. He'll agree to anything." And Sophia had said nothing. Her silence was her answer. Even after hearing that, I'd clung to a sliver of hope. I told myself she wouldn't go through with something so insane, that she was just trying to shut Ethan up. But here we were, at our engagement party, and she was actually letting him push this contract in my face. And when I asked her about it, she claimed Ethan was just looking out for her. How could she say that with a straight face? Has she no shame? Seeing my silence, Ethan smirked, thinking he had me cornered. "If you don't sign, Liam, it just proves you only see Sophia as a baby maker. In that case, you can forget about getting engaged. Maybe try again when you've learned to respect her." He really thought I was so desperate that I'd sign his humiliating terms, just because he knew how much I'd put up with for Sophia over the years. He was wrong. The crack of my hand across his face echoed in the silent room. "You're so damn invested in her not having my kid," I snarled. "What's the plan, Ethan? You want her to have yours instead?" Sophia's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "Liam, what the hell are you talking about? Ethan is just trying to protect me, and you get violent." She rushed to his side, cupping his cheek where my hand had landed, her touch gentle and full of concern. I let out another one of those cold laughs. "Protecting you? Yeah, I'm sure he'll protect you all the way into his bed. It's amazing what some people can get away with when they whisper the right lies." The jab hit its mark. Ethan's smile froze, and for a second, I saw a flicker of pure malice in his eyes. Guests were starting to gather, whispering among themselves. "A contract? Before an engagement? What kind of joke is this? And who is that guy, anyway? Her assistant? He's got some nerve." Sophia's face hardened. She ripped the corsage from her dress and slammed it on the table. "That's enough, Liam. Ethan is like a brother to me. What gives you the right to hit him? Apologize, now." Every word was a command, delivered with absolute certainty, not a trace of guilt in her eyes. I actually laughed. "And if I don't, what are you going to do? Call the whole thing off?" For a moment, she hesitated. She picked up the ruined corsage. "Liam, you know he saved my life. When you hit him in front of everyone, you're humiliating me." So apologize. For me. She gave me that look, the one she always used, the one that was supposed to make me fold and do whatever she wanted. I held her gaze, my voice low and steady. A year ago, Ethan blew that multi-million-dollar deal, and you had me take the fall. I was the one who had to go groveling to Mr. Henderson. 10 months ago, he got drunk and assaulted someone in a bar. You called me at 3 a.m. to go down to the station and tell the cops I did it. I spent a month in a holding cell for him. 6 months ago, he was mixing counterfeit materials into your family's pharmaceutical shipments. You begged me to say it was my mistake. I did 6 months of community service and paid a massive fine for that. I laid it all out, one humiliation after another. Sophia, every single time you ask me to clean up his messes. He saved your life, I get it. But don't you think that debt has been paid in full by now? My voice was quiet, but in the silent room, every word landed. All eyes turned to Ethan, and the whispers turned to looks of open contempt. He just follows her around like a puppy, causing problems. Total leech. Complete loser. I have no idea why she keeps him around. Seeing the tide turn, Ethan's entire demeanor shifted. He slapped his own face hard. Okay, it's all my fault. I deserved that. I never had a sister, so I've always tried to protect Sophia like she was my own. Liam, I'm sorry. Take it all out on me. Just don't make this hard on her. And then, the masterstroke. He actually started to get down on his knees. Whatever flicker of guilt I might have seen in Sophia's eyes vanished, replaced by a wave of fierce protectiveness. Ethan, get up, she commanded. You don't kneel for anyone while I'm here. She spun on me, her voice shaking with rage. You just can't let it go, can you? You have to hold this one thing over his head forever? Do you really need to see him on his knees? That was it. Any warmth I had left for her turned to ice. But Ethan, the master actor, pushed Sophia aside and dropped to the floor, the sound of his forehead hitting the marble echoing through the hall. Liam, I'll repay my debt to you myself. Just don't use it to pressure Sophia. Please, will you sign the agreement now? He'd done it for real. Blood started to trickle down his forehead. Sophia's eyes went wide with horror. She scrambled to him, cradling his head in her hands. She looked up at me, her face twisted with disgust. I can't believe you, Liam. Holding one good deed over his head like this, you're disgusting. The look in her eyes wasn't just anger. It was pure hatred. She looked at me like she wanted me dead, as if I wasn't the man she was supposed to marry, but her mortal enemy. But I never asked him to repay anything. I sure as hell didn't ask him to kneel. He was the one forcing this insane contract on me. She was the one who had betrayed me, and somehow they twisted it all around to make me the villain. Never mind the 6 years I spent propping up her family's company, using Carter resources to turn Miller Industries into a major player and making her a celebrated CEO. I worked myself into a bleeding ulcer to close deals that brought in 9-figure profits in a single quarter. I cooked for her, planned vacations, turned down every single woman my family tried to set me up with, and kept a professional distance from every other woman in my life. All for her. 6 years of unwavering devotion, and my reward was being told I wasn't considerate enough, was being looked at with pure, unadulterated hatred. Some of the older guests started trying to smooth things over. Come on, it's a celebration. Let's all just calm down. Exactly. Everyone just take a step back. Let's not ruin the day. But Sophia's face was a mask of ice. Liam, if you're this incapable of showing me a little compassion, then the engagement is off. We can talk about rescheduling after you've apologized to Ethan. I looked at her, still cradling him in her arms, and a bleak, empty smile touched my lips. I slowly unpinned the boutonniere from my lapel and set it down on the table next to her ruined corsage. You're right, Sophia. I'm not the man for you. We shouldn't be getting engaged. The fact that I wasn't begging for her forgiveness, that I was actually agreeing to end it, sent her into a rage. She grabbed the nearest champagne flute and hurled it at me. Get out. Liam Carter, you walk out that door and we are done for good. You could come crawling back on your hands and knees, and I would never, ever take you back. The glass shattered against the wall behind me, a shard catching my forehead. I felt a warm trickle of blood run down into my eyebrow. Sophia froze for a second when she saw the blood, but she didn't let go of Ethan. Her face hardened again. You deserved that, she spat. You ruined everything. If you were half as good at making me happy as Ethan is, we would have been married years ago. I could see it all in her eyes then, the resentment, the disappointment, the feeling that I had never been enough. So that was it. That was why she turned me down every time I'd proposed before. I couldn't stand the sight of Ethan's triumphant smirk for another second. I pushed past the gawking guests and walked out of the hotel without looking back. I had lost. It was a complete and humiliating defeat. I'd given my time, my health, My loyalty all for a woman who secretly wished I was someone else. Fine, Sophia, I muttered to the empty street. You can have him. I hope you two are very happy together. By the time I got back to the family estate, my father was waiting for me in the great hall. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. Do you see her for who she is now? I couldn't even look him in the eye. I just sank to my knees. Dad, I'm sorry. For 6 years, I'd ignored my responsibilities at Carter Corp, letting him run the empire alone while his health failed. All while he was still pulling strings behind the scenes, feeding contracts and clients to her family's company, all for my sake. My father's voice was calm, devoid of any, I told you so. It was never about me interfering, son. The Millers were never the right fit for us. Sophia's father, Robert Miller, he built his company on stolen patents. He ruined his own mentor to get ahead. The man has been cutting corners and dealing in shady pharmaceuticals for years. He's ruthless. Everyone in our circle knows it. I hung my head in shame. When I came back from my MBA program, I was so taken with her, so charmed by her energy and beauty. I heard her laugh and I was a goner. I thought she was different from her family. So sweet, so seemingly innocent. I never believed she could be that cold. Turns out the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Dad, I said, my voice firm, I'll do it. Make the call to the Vance family. A slow smile spread across his face. Good. I'll call Arthur Vance immediately. His daughter, Chloe, has been waiting a long time for you to come to your senses. He paused, his expression serious. Are you sure about this, Liam? Once you're engaged to Chloe, there's no going back to Sophia. You have to be fair to the girl. I nodded, my resolve firm. I couldn't blame him for doubting me. My reputation as Sophia Miller's doormat was practically legendary in this city. When that counterfeit drug scandal of theirs nearly turned deadly, I was the one who stood between her father and a grieving, knife-wielding family member. I took 3 slashes for him, broken ribs. I was the one who issued the public apology, took full responsibility, and let the Carter family name get dragged through the mud to protect theirs. When the tabloids started publishing photos of Sophia and Ethan looking a little too close, I was the one who called a press conference and told everyone he was like a little brother to us, that I'd personally asked him to look after her when I was busy. The memory of it all made my face burn with shame. Dad, I said, my voice hard as steel, cut them off. Pull every Carter resource, every contract, every connection. I'm done with them. The next day, my father made the call. That evening, to my surprise, Chloe Vance showed up at my door. Seeing the hopeful look on my father's face, I knew I had to take her out. After dinner, she suggested we hit a lounge downtown. She said a friend of hers was there and she wanted to introduce us. The moment we walked in, I saw them, Sophia and Ethan, crammed into a VIP booth with a few of his sycophants, all of them red-faced and loud from drinking. Our eyes met across the room. The moment Sophia saw Chloe standing next to me, her smile vanished. She shot to her feet, her glare like a shard of ice, first at me, then raking over Chloe from head to toe. Ethan looked up, a contemptuous sneer on his face. Well, if it isn't Liam Carter himself. Didn't take you long to find a replacement, did it? You move on fast. Sophia stormed over to us, shoved Chloe's hand off my arm, and snapped, "Get your hands off my boyfriend." She turned to me, her voice low and menacing. Really, Liam? You had to stoop to hiring some random girl just to make me jealous. It's not going to work. Following me here won't change anything. Until you apologize to Ethan, the engagement is off. She practically spat the word off. Ethan's friends started laughing. Damn, Carter. You must have a tracking device on her, following her all the way here. What do you expect? He's the city's #1 simp. Sophia dumps him, and he probably spent all night crying into his pillow. And he brings this cheap rebound to try and make her jealous? Pathetic. As they all laughed at my expense, Sophia's anger seemed to cool, replaced by her usual look of condescending pity. Just go home, Liam. Stop embarrassing yourself. If you keep this up, I won't even consider rescheduling the engagement. I pulled Chloe closer, about to say something, when the club's manager came rushing over. He stopped right in front of Chloe. "Ms. Vance, I didn't know you were coming in tonight." His eyes flickered to me, then back to her. "Are these your friends? Please order anything you like. It's on the house, of course." The entire booth went dead silent. This was one of the most exclusive clubs in the city, and the manager just called this woman a Miss Vance? Seeing their confused faces, the manager quickly clarified. "This is Chloe Vance. Her family owns the Vance conglomerate and this club. Any friend of Ms. Vance is a friend of mine. You're all welcome here anytime." They stared, dumbfounded. Ethan, looking skeptical, asked, "Vance conglomerate? As in Arthur Vance, the billionaire?" The manager nodded enthusiastically. "The one and only. How many Vance heiresses do you think there are in this city? I assumed you all were her friends. As the manager started looking at them with a confused expression, Chloe just gave him a slight wave, dismissing him. The second he was gone, Sophia's demeanor shifted again. She glared at me, her voice laced with venom. Liam, you bastard. Were you just using me for 6 years until you could trade up? Did you dump me just to get your hands on her family's money? Ethan chimed in, full of righteous indignation. Sophia, I told you he was no good. He was just using you to get a foothold in Miller Industries. The second things got tough, he jumped ship to a bigger fortune. He then turned his smarmy charm on Chloe, giving her a wink. Hey, just a friendly warning. We're all friends here. Be careful you don't get played by a user like him. He tried to lean in closer, and Chloe slapped him across the face before he could get within a foot of her. So you're the kept man I've heard about, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Get away from me. I don't want your slime touching my clothes. Ethan's face flushed crimson. He looked at Sophia, his expression a perfect picture of wounded pride. Before Sophia could say a word, Chloe cut her off with a cold smile. Sophia Miller, right? You should really keep your pet on a tighter leash. He seems to bother the other guests. Unlike you, I don't have a taste for boy toys. Sophia's retort died in her throat. She just stood there, mouth agape, her face burning. She wasn't blind. Ethan was still standing there, looking like a fool. Chloe took my hand. Come on, Liam, let's go up to my office. The air is better up there. Less trash. As we turned to leave, Sophia finally snapped. Liam, don't you dare walk away, she shrieked. You love me. How can you sell yourself out like this just for money? She lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Liam, I know you're just trying to hurt me. Look, just apologize to Ethan. Right now, we can go back to the way things were. We can get engaged tonight. Please. I laughed in her face and pulled my arm away. The disappointment was so profound it felt like a physical weight. Even now, after everything, her first thought was to protect him. She was a lost cause. By the time Chloe and I finished going over some paperwork in her office, it was past midnight. When we came back down, Sophia and her crew were long gone. That's when I saw the notification. Ethan had just posted on his Instagram story. It was a picture of them in a lavish hotel suite. He was shirtless, on top of her, holding her close. Her shirt was pulled off one shoulder, her eyes were glazed over, and her arms were wrapped tightly around his neck as they kissed. The caption read, "Thank you for making my wish come true." Her face was mostly hidden, but I recognized the diamond earrings. I'd given them to her for her birthday. A cold fury washed over me, though I couldn't stop the sharp pang of pain in my chest. I picked up my phone and called my father. Dad, pull everything, every last bit of support for Miller Industries. Now. My father didn't ask why. He just said, done. He made the calls right then and there. The message was sent out. Carter Corp was severing all ties with Miller Industries. Any company that chose to continue working with them would be blacklisted by us. Permanently. The next morning, I'd barely sat down at my desk when Sophia burst into my office. Liam, when are you going to stop this childish game? Henderson called me at dawn this morning, pulling out of the merger. This has your fingerprints all over it, doesn't it? Let me tell you something. These little power plays aren't going to win me back. They're just making me despise you more. I just sneered, my eyes drifting to the side of her neck. The cluster of dark bruises there told me everything I needed to know about her night. Her eyes flickered away, and she instinctively pulled her collar higher. It was the mosquitoes last night, she stammered. I have sensitive skin. Before she could finish the pathetic lie, her phone buzzed. Ms. Miller, it's a disaster. The entire RD department just walked out. You need to get back here now. She'd barely hung up when it rang again. Sophia, it's the FDA. They're here with a warrant, raiding the warehouses. They say they've found counterfeit ingredients in our products. They're seizing everything. Sophia just stood there, stunned, her face a mask of disbelief. What? Impossible. How could there be counterfeit materials in our supply chain? Her eyes darted to me, suspicion instantly hardening into accusation. Was this you, Liam? Did you plant this? Is this another one of your sick games to try and control me? I laughed, the sound full of contempt. Sophia, use your head for once. You stripped me of all operational oversight 3 months ago, remember? My job now is basically accounts receivable and client relations. You might want to ask the person you put in charge of procurement and logistics. 3 months ago, after I landed that big pharma contract and got my commission check, Ethan got jealous. He whined to Sophia until she made him director of sales and gave him complete control over the supply chain. I fought it tooth and nail. I reminded her about the last time their quality control slipped and people almost died. She accused me of being jealous, of being threatened by Ethan's potential and trying to hold him back. In the end, she ignored me and gave him the job anyway. Panic finally set in. She fumbled for her phone and called Ethan. Ethan, what the hell is going on? The FDA is saying the warehouses are full of counterfeit stock. What did you do? His voice on the other end was a pathetic whine. Sophia, I'm so sorry. I was just trying to improve our profit margins. They're not counterfeit exactly, just from an unlicensed supplier. They're perfectly safe, I swear. Sophia looked like she was about to have a stroke. Are you insane? Do you have any idea what the penalties are for trafficking in unlicensed pharmaceuticals? How was I supposed to know the FDA would pick today for a surprise inspection? He whined. The whole shipment was scheduled to be out of there by tomorrow. Sophia, I'm sorry. I got them for pennies on the dollar. I was just trying to save you money. It's all my fault. Just let them arrest me. Sophia, when the baby is born, just don't tell him his father is in jail. And then he started to sob dramatically. I watched the emotions play across Sophia's face. Anger, fear, and then calculation. After a long, heavy silence, her eyes slowly turned to me. A cold dread washed over me. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't possibly be shameless enough to ask me to take the fall for this. Liam, she began, her voice dangerously soft. You hear him. He was only trying to help me. He's so young. A prison sentence would destroy his life. What if you were to take responsibility for this? Don't worry. The moment you get out, we'll get married. Promise. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. The air in my lungs turned to stone. I felt a crushing weight on my chest, so heavy I couldn't even breathe. I stared at her, my vision blurring at the edges. It wasn't sadness. It was pure, undiluted rage. Hatred. I hated myself for being so blind, for wasting 6 years of my life on a viper. Yesterday she was in his bed, and today she's telling me she'll love me forever. The sheer audacity to ask me to go to prison for them. Couldn't even look at her anymore. A guttural roar ripped from my throat. Get out. I grabbed the nearest stack of files and hurled it at her. Her phone rang again. She answered it, then looked back at me, her eyes pleading. Liam, I swear, this will be the last time. Just say you'll do it and we can get married tomorrow. Just think about it. I have to get to the office. She backed out of the room, still talking frantically into her phone. I could still hear snippets of her conversation as she hurried down the hall. She was comforting Ethan. I closed my eyes, took a deep, shuddering breath, and buzzed my assistant. From this moment on, Sophia Miller is not to be allowed within 100 feet of this building. The story about Miller Industries blew up online. Customers swarmed pharmacies demanding refunds. Major distributors started sending back their entire inventory, demanding compensation for their losses. The entrance to the Miller Industries headquarters became a permanent protest site. Inside, employees were resigning in droves. Sophia called me dozens of times. I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say to her. I just blocked her number. Then one afternoon, my office door opened, and 2 detectives in suits walked in, their faces grim. Are you Liam Carter? I looked up from my desk, confused, and nodded. We're with the Joint Task Force investigating Miller Industries. We need you to come with us to answer some questions regarding the distribution of counterfeit pharmaceuticals. I felt a flash of surprise but kept my expression neutral. Officers, may I ask who made this accusation? I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear them say it. Sophia Miller, CEO of Miller Industries. She alleges that you were the one who introduced the counterfeit materials into their supply chain for personal profit. Let's go. I let out a cold laugh. Then I stood up and followed them out of the office without a word. Just as I expected, Sophia and Ethan were already in the interrogation room. Sophia glanced at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and defiance, before quickly looking away. I looked at Ethan, who was practically hiding behind her chair, and I started to laugh. A loud, humorless laugh. Sophia, are you even human? You know exactly who did this, and you're still trying to pin it on me. Aren't you afraid of what's coming for you? Sophia's face turned beet red, but before she could speak, Ethan cut in, his voice firm. Detectives, it was him, Liam Carter. He sourced the counterfeit materials and had them mixed into our shipments. We have witnesses at the company who will confirm it. He has a history of this. He was involved in a similar incident years ago that resulted in a fatality. He served time for it. Our quality control manager told me he saw Liam at the warehouse almost every day for the past few months. I even confronted him about it. He promised he was just checking on things, but clearly, he was up to something. In fact, you can ask the warehouse foreman, a guy named Peterson. He'll tell you he saw Liam bringing in several unmarked crates himself. When Peterson asked what was in them, Liam told him it was on Ms. Miller's orders, and to mind his own business. A moment later, they brought Peterson in. He was sweating and nervous. "Detectives, this ain't on me. Mr. Carter is a VP. He tells me to store some boxes, I store some boxes. What am I supposed to do? I'm just the foreman. He's one of the bosses. It's not my place to question him." The lead detective turned to me, his eyes hard. "Mr. Carter, you've heard the testimony. Do you have anything to say?" I just smiled. "I have nothing to say. You can direct all further questions to my attorney." "Fine. You're being detained pending further investigation." He snapped the cuffs on my wrists and led me out of the room. As I walked past them, I saw the smug, triumphant look on Ethan's face. Sophia wouldn't even look at me. She just turned away and put a comforting hand on Ethan's arm. It didn't take long. My father arrived with the best corporate lawyer in the state. After I explained the situation, our lawyer just chuckled. "This is absurd. They think they can build a case on the testimony of a coerced foreman. All we have to do is trace the money, follow the paper trail for the procurement and shipping. The truth will come out." He got to work immediately, making calls and pulling strings. I was arrested in the morning. By late afternoon, a mountain of evidence was delivered to the lead detective's desk. They had the supplier of the counterfeit materials in custody. He'd rolled over on his entire client list, and Ethan Reed's name was at the very top, a repeat customer. I walked out of the station a free man just as the sun was setting. Sophia was brought in for questioning. My lawyer had already filed a lawsuit against her for defamation and malicious prosecution. After hours of interrogation, Sophia finally cracked. She lunged at Ethan, slapping him hard across the face. "This is all your fault. If my family's company goes under because of you, I will ruin you. Everything was fine, but you and your stupid contract, I was going to help you. I was going to have the baby, but you had to push Liam over the edge. Now he's gone for good. He'll never help me again. Is this what you wanted?" She slapped him again and again, her anger mixed with the bitter taste of regret. Ethan cowered, holding up his hands. "It's not all my fault. You went along with the plan. And the pharmaceuticals, I was only doing it to help the company, to increase profits for you." "Shut up," she screamed. "Don't think for a second I don't know where all that extra profit went. It sure as hell wasn't into the company's accounts." Ethan clutched his cheek, his voice defiant. "So what if I took it? It was for us, for our son. I can't have you supporting him his whole life. I wanted to contribute something." Sophia stared at him, her anger slowly draining away, replaced by a weary resignation. "Just keep it up, Ethan. Let's see who you find to bail you out of this mess." Sophia started calling in every favor she had, trying to find someone, anyone, who could make this go away. But the evidence was overwhelming. No one would touch it. She was on her own. One evening, exhausted after another failed attempt to bribe a public official, Sophia remembered she hadn't been to the hospital in days to visit Ethan's father, the man who had saved her life. She drove straight there. As she approached his room, she heard Ethan's voice from inside and paused at the door. "Don't worry, Dad. Sophia's handling it. She'll figure something out. We'll be fine. And worst case scenario, I'll just tell them she ordered me to do it. I was just following my boss's instructions." I had no idea the supplier wasn't legitimate. A hearty voice boomed in response, a voice that sounded far too healthy for a man supposedly on his deathbed. "You fool. I told you not to get greedy. Why risk everything for a little extra cash? All you had to do was play your cards right, get her pregnant. The whole Miller fortune would have been yours for the taking. I set this whole thing up 10 years ago. I hired those thugs to stage that mugging so we could swoop in and save her. That one act was supposed to set us up for life." Ethan's voice was full of resentment. "Don't lecture me, Dad. When the Millers almost went bankrupt years ago, you were the one who made us disappear. If we'd stuck around, I would have locked her down long before Liam Carter was even in the picture." Sophia stood frozen outside the door, the words washing over her like a bucket of ice water, chilling her to the bone. The man she had revered as her savior was the one who had orchestrated the whole thing. Her hero was her attacker. All these years, she'd bought them cars, a house, treated Ethan like her own brother, and all along, she'd been nurturing a snake in her own home. She had put her own life on hold, agreed to betray the man she was supposed to marry, all to have a baby for a con artist, to fulfill the fake dying wish of a monster. An image of Liam's face flashed in her mind, the cold disgust in his eyes when he'd seen the bruises on her neck. A pain sharper than any she had ever known ripped through her chest, and she struggled to breathe. Inside the room, the two men continued to plot, discussing the best way to frame her for everything, how to manipulate her into signing a confession. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. The crowds outside the office were getting bigger. The press was demanding a statement. Several of their largest partners had already filed lawsuits. A look of utter despair settled on Sophia's face. Then it hardened into something else. She made a call. A minute later, her 4 personal bodyguards appeared at the end of the hall. Sophia pointed a trembling finger at the hospital room door. "Go in there," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "and beat him until he tells you everything about the counterfeit drug operation. I want a full confession." The head of her security detail looked at her, confused. "Ma'am, that's Mr. Reed and his father in there. You want us to assault them?" She looked at their hesitant faces and realized with a sickening lurch just how obvious her devotion to the Reeds had been to everyone around her. Shame burned in her gut, quickly followed by white-hot rage. "I said do it," she screamed. "From this day forward, Ethan Reed is my enemy. Do you understand me? And if you don't walk out of that room with a signed confession, you're all fired." The bodyguards didn't hesitate again. They burst into the room and dragged the 2 men from their chairs. "Ms. Miller wants a full confession," the head guard said calmly as the beating began. "About everything." "No!" Ethan screamed through a split lip. "This is impossible. Sophia would never do this to me. She loves me. You bastards are dead. When Sophia finds out, she'll have you all killed. She threw away her fiancé for me. She wouldn't do this." Listening from the hallway, Sophia's tears finally fell. What a fool she had been. Liam had been so good to her. He had given her everything. And what had she done in return? She looked down, catching her reflection in her dark phone screen, and saw the faint marks still on her neck. A wave of self-loathing washed over her, and she began to claw at her own skin, her nails digging in until she drew blood. Meanwhile, things with Chloe and me were getting serious. We went to movies, took weekend trips out of the city, and discovered we'd known each other as kids. Chloe looked at me one night, a slight blush on her cheeks. "Do you remember playing house at that summer camp when we were 8? I was the bride and you were the groom. You promised you'd marry me for real when we grew up. You probably don't remember." Her blush deepened as she spoke. "So, Liam, does that offer still stand?" She was looking at me with such sincerity. A warmth spread through my chest. I grabbed her hand, pulled her to her feet, and hailed a cab. "Take us to the nearest bridal boutique," I told the driver. I picked out a dress, and as I slid a simple diamond ring onto her finger, I made her a new promise. "Chloe Vance, I will never break a promise to you again. I'll spend the rest of my life taking care of you." When our parents saw the photos, they were ecstatic. They decided to skip the long engagement and started planning the wedding right away. While Chloe and I were caught up in a whirlwind of wedding planning, the Miller family was drowning. Distributors dumped truckloads of recalled products on the steps of the Miller Industries building. Protesters spray-painted the walls, "Miller Pharmacills," and "Poison for profit. Pay for what you've done. Shut them down." Sophia was finally forced to face the public. And when she did, she brought Ethan and his father with her, both of them in wheelchairs with their legs in casts. Ethan was no longer the smug manipulator, just a broken, pathetic man. In front of a wall of cameras, Sophia presented a signed confession from Ethan, along with audio recordings of the entire thing. The confession laid it all out: how Ethan had sourced the counterfeit materials, how he'd swapped them with the legitimate supply, and how he'd pocketed millions in the process. The fraud amounted to tens of millions of dollars and involved over a dozen different products, including, most damningly, a widely used blood pressure medication. The families of victims who had suffered strokes after taking the tainted medication were in the crowd. They surged forward, breaking through the security line, and started beating Ethan right there in his wheelchair. Someone threw a bag of rotten food that splattered all over him. Another person tried to force a handful of the recalled pills down his throat. It was chaos until the police finally intervened, forming a barrier around him and escorting him into custody as the crowd screamed for justice. Ethan didn't even try to fight back. He just curled into a ball, sobbing. I confess everything. Just get me out of here." With Sophia's evidence and the supplier's testimony, the police had an open and shut case against him. Sophia also gave a full statement about the staged mugging from 10 years ago, implicating Ethan's father. She didn't hide her own crime, freely admitting to assault and coercion to get the confession. The district attorney's office took the case, and the trial date was set. A few days later, while she was out on bail awaiting her own trial, I found Sophia waiting for me in the parking garage of my office building. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up with a desperate hope, and tears began to stream down her face. "Liam," she whispered, "I was wrong. Everything with Ethan, everything I did to you, it was all my fault. I'm so sorry." I said nothing. "Miller Industries is going under," she continued, her voice breaking. She wiped at her tears. "All our senior staff have quit. Production has completely halted. The warehouses are full of useless inventory. I looked at her, my face a blank mask. And what does any of that have to do with me? She lunged forward, throwing her arms around me. Liam, please. I know I messed up. I know it now. Can't we just start over? I know you still love me, and I love you. We have 6 years of history. I gently but firmly removed her arms from around my neck. I'm marrying Chloe next month. She froze, her face crumbling in despair. Her sobs became ragged and desperate. Liam, no, you can't. You can't leave me. You're all I have left. The old me would have pulled her into a hug, would have told her it was all going to be okay, that I would fix it. But that man was gone. I just looked at her, my voice devoid of all emotion. No, Sophia, you have Ethan. And if I'm not mistaken, you're probably carrying his child. Her hand flew to her stomach, her eyes wide with shock. How did you know? And in that moment I understood. That Instagram story. He must have set the privacy so that I was the only one who could see it. I gave her a look of pure disgust. Did you really think you could play me for a fool forever, Sophia? Did you expect me to raise your lover's baby? Is there anyone on this planet more shameless than you? Don't you feel sick to your stomach when you look in the mirror? Why would I ever want another man's sloppy seconds? Her face went from flushed red to ghostly white. She covered her face with her hands and fled. A week later, the sentences came down. Ethan Reed, for trafficking counterfeit pharmaceuticals resulting in widespread public harm, was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison and fined $1 million. Sophia Miller, for criminal negligence, conspiracy, and assault, was sentenced to 10 years and fined $1 million. Ethan's father, for conspiracy and extortion, got 3 years. As they were being led out of the courtroom, Sophia lunged at Ethan. She'd somehow smuggled in a shiv. She stabbed him again and again, more than 10 times, before the bailiffs could pull her off his bloody body. Sophia was immediately placed in solitary confinement. During her psychiatric evaluation, they discovered she was pregnant. Her sentence was deferred to house arrest until after the child was born. One evening, a few weeks later, Sophia stood on the roof of the now empty Miller Industries building. She watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. And then, she stepped off the edge. She didn't leave a note. I guess in the end, there was nothing left to say.